Air, the lightest element. A habitat that humans still struggle to enter. But the sky isn't just for the birds. It's home to lovers and fighters, parasites and predators, and even real vampires. The world's weirdest flyers are ready for takeoff. These are the freaks of the sky. When moving through the air, the sky's the limit. But to really leave the earthbound world behind, you need to bust a few moves. Like lift, direction, strength, and nerves of steel. Whether jumping or gliding, hovering or diving, these animals make defying gravity look easy, especially since a lot of them don't even have wings. When you've got fur instead of feathers, going airborne takes some guts. But the flying squirrel never hesitates to leap into the void. Luckily, he comes equipped with a built-in parachute. A membrane stretches from wrist to ankle, turning the squirrel into a living, breathing paper airplane. With each leap, the squirrel takes aim and spreads its body into a square. A cartilage rod attached to their wrists helps them steer during flight. The rodents glide through the forest like ghosts, their tails acting as a stabilizer and a brake. They may look like daredevils, but flying squirrels have plenty to be scared of. Snakes, owls, raccoons, and even cats constantly hunt them. But no matter what, this squirrel will always have an escape plan. Gliding is like a built-in life insurance policy. Wingless predators need not apply. In its movements, the next flyer is less of a glider and more of a bomber. A weapon with just one target: seafood. To a flock of hungry Cape Gannets, a swarm of sardines looks like an all-you-can-eat buffet. But the fish have no intention of ending up on the menu. To avoid being singled out by predators like tuna and dolphins, sardines band together in an enormous, tightly swirling mass called a bait ball. It's a formidable defensive move, until the wall of scales shatters from an air-launched weapon. Cape Gannets, the ultimate in avian military technology. They can dive from the height of a 30-story office building, reaching speeds up to 96 kilometers an hour. And on the way down, they turn into torpedoes. Before they hit the water, Cape Gannets fold their wings straight back, transforming into aerodynamic missiles. And they do it perfectly with every single dive. A millisecond too late, and it would be like plunging into a brick wall. With a quick underwater wing flap, they can dive to depths of over 12 meters. They can even swallow their seafood meal on the way back up, if they want to avoid a fish-fueled fight. This bird's body is built for impact. Air sacs and fat provide a cushion every time one hits the water. and their bright white plumage broadcasts to other seabirds to come join in the spoils. Faced with an Air Force and the Navy, the bait ball becomes sardine sushi. Now that's an MRE any airborne soldier would love. It takes a lot to feed the flying mechanism. This flyer is going to need a few extra meals to fuel its freakishly fast metabolism. Imagine having to eat your body weight every day and still weighing less than 28 grams. That's a diet, hummingbird style. If they were human-sized, they would need to eat 155,000 calories a day. But don't get jealous yet. That means visiting over 1,000 flowers daily. So nature has engineered these little guys for extreme amounts of exercise. Their wings can beat up to 200 times per second. Their flight speed can match a major league fastball, and that's without steroids. But they do need oxygen, and lots of it. During flight, the hummingbird takes as many as 500 breaths per minute, all to power a nectar-drinking hovercraft that can weigh less than a single dime. Any Air Force would kill to enlist this flying machine. The average hummingbird can outmaneuver almost anything on the wing, flying up, down, sideways, backwards, and even upside down. They fly so well, they barely use their feet. It's kind of amazing that they ever developed legs. And it's even more incredible that this airborne mammal developed wings. In Australia, little red flying foxes spend their whole lives among the trees. So a good pair of wings is pretty important. Except that these aren't really wings. They're more like hands. 1 meter wide alien hands with webbed fingers, that is. In the air, the flexible digits act like fingers, spreading the thin membrane between them to control direction and altitude. All that maneuverability will come in handy for this flyby. One way the big bats can drink water is to skim the surface of a river and lick the droplets of water off their fur. But one missed approach, and plenty of predators lurk beneath the surface. So the foxes have to keep those wings working like a well-oiled machine. A good licking keeps those hands primed for flight. Since flying foxes never stay in one spot for long, each bat has to be locked and loaded. They just have to keep their hands out of the water. You may not always need wings to take to the air, but fins aren't normally associated with flying. Yet some fish spend a remarkable amount of time out of their native element, especially if they're driven by an incredibly strong homing instinct. Most adult salmon spend their lives at sea. But when it comes time to lay eggs, they head home to the river they were born in, a journey that can take thousands of kilometers. That's one heck of a class reunion. Swimming as far as 80 kilometers a day upstream in a raging torrent isn't exactly easy. If there's something in the way, there's only one option: jump. Legends once told that salmon hurled themselves over waterfalls by taking their tails in their mouths and flinging their bodies into the air like a bow from an arrow. Not exactly. Instead, it's all about timing. The fish use strong upward currents created when falling water displaces the water beneath it. The currents help propel them over waterfalls and rapids. But they don't just depend on river conditions. These fish have more moves than an Olympic high jumper. They can leap more than 3 meters into the air. But charging upstream and jumping waterfalls is much more than the fish equivalent of the decathlon. It's a death wish. When the salmon are running, even the laziest predators have easy pickings. The fish have to just keep swimming and hope for the best. But for their future babies, life will be even harder. Less than 10% of fry will survive to make the same journey. Given those odds, a bear's jaws start to look pretty good. While salmon leap towards danger, Asian carp fly high to avoid it. It seems like an angler's dream. Fair weather and the fish are jumping right into the boat. But no one wants fish to jump like this. Asian carp can weigh over 22 kilograms, so a flying fish to the face is no joke. These bruisers have broken noses and knocked people out. Even noise and bubbles from the smallest outboard motor, well, scares the carp out of them. And for these fish, fright equals flight. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's superfish. But these aren't homegrown heroes. They're an invasive army. Asian carp accidentally escaped from fish farms in the deep south in the 1970s and spread like wildfire, gobbling up all the indigenous fish and plankton in their path. Strangely, the species never jumped in their native Chinese habitat, leading some scientists to think that the original fugitive fish could have been skittish scaredy cats, passing that trait on to their millions of offspring. Now, all those grown-up fish fry are within spitting distance of the Great Lakes, and the people of Bath, Illinois aim to do their part to stop them. Every year, they hold the Redneck Fishing Tournament. There's only one rule: no rods. And only one goal: net as many invasive carp as possible.
Oh, nice! There you go. That's how you do it.
Oh, and make sure you know how to duck. Because that's a skill you'll want to have in this jungle. Here, in the thick canopy of the Malaysian rainforest, the best way to move around is by air. Even if you don't have wings. Yes, there are snakes that can fly. Well, glide, actually. Gliding tree snakes can use their serpentine bodies to glide from tree to tree, or even float from the treetops to the ground. But they don't just slither to the end of a branch and jump. As it takes off, the reptile's ribs fan out and flatten, transforming its body into an aerodynamic wing. These snakes aren't on a plane. They are the plane. And they aren't bad pilots either. In flight, the snake forms the shape of a letter S, directing air over the front and back of its body, which helps add lift. This calculated movement allows it to choose a location 100 meters away, change direction in the air, and land without a scratch. It's a quick way to navigate the jungle. And it also gives the element of surprise. But sometimes, the potential victim can also go airborne. The flying dragon can glide half the length of a football field and still swoop in for a perfect three-point landing. Loose folds of skin on the lizard's sides expand into a cape attached to its ribs, enabling it to glide. Though clumsy on the ground, safety from predators is only a jump away. And in our postcard from the edge of weirdness, the African bush baby shows how to get the jump on predators when it hunts at night. A third of the bush baby's body mass is built for jumping, and one hop is all it takes to get airborne. But the bush baby is more than just a good jumper. It's a loaded spring, coiled and ready for launch. And as it lands each leap, it converts the energy of impact right back into takeoff, jumping 4.5 meters or more in a single bound. For predators, it's like trying to catch a bouncing ball, only this one knows where it's going. Eating on the fly isn't always easy, and the types of food available are often difficult to catch. So the hunters of the air have evolved some ingenious ways of sustaining themselves. Most airborne predators survive on lightning-fast reflexes and a talent for using talons, teeth, or claws. But some have much weirder ways of bringing home the bacon, such as the shrike. He may look like a sweet little songbird, but this ruthless predator impales more victims than a vampire slayer. The shrike feeds on small reptiles, birds, and insects. And when he wants to dig into a good meal, he skewers his prey on the thorns of the acacia tree. Now he can rip into some fresh meat. This spiky branch isn't just a slaughterhouse, it's also a pantry. Often, the shrike will spear prey and store them there until decay starts to break down their bodies. He may also garnish them with feathers in an attempt to attract a mate. Lizard on the Barbie, anyone? For some of our freaky flyers, it's not meat that's on the menu. He comes in the night, avoiding the moonlight. He has just one all-consuming desire: to feed. And there's only one thing on the menu: your blood. This is no mythical creature, but a living, breathing animal. The vampire bat. When it comes to feeding, this little thumb-sized bat definitely sides with Dracula. It's the only mammal on an all-blood diet. An unsuspecting cow is the perfect prey. First, a stealthy ground approach. Vampire bats can walk on their thumbs and hop like a rabbit. Ankles and ears are prime targets. A quick bite and the feast begins. These vampires really do have fangs. Sharp upper incisors that can delicately slice into their prey without being detected. Anticoagulants in the bat's saliva keep the blood from clotting. They don't suck blood, they drink it. And they're bloodaholics. If a vampire bat misses more than one night of slurping, they could die. And no one dies from blood loss at this vampire's meal. But they can kill. Millions of US dollars worth of cattle die each year from rabies transmitted through vampire bat bites. It may not be supernatural, but that's definitely scary. Most bats use sonar to locate prey in the darkness. But for this bat species, it's all ears. Meet the long-eared bat. Okay, so it doesn't have a very creative name. But those ears are the real deal. Its hearing is so sensitive, it can distinguish the sound of a moth's wings within the noise of a rushing stream. Forget the $6 million man. This is the bionic bat. When the faint noise of a flying insect catches the bat's ear, he shuts his sonar down. His prey has learned to detect the sound waves he makes, so instead, he simply listens with those super sensitive ears. Like the stealth bomber, he is now virtually invisible to his targets, but equally lethal. The silent bat isn't on the moth's radar. But every superhero has a weakness. Although he can hear the moth through the leaf, his vision is poor. The bat can't actually see his prey, so he flies toward it on the wrong side. As long as the moth stays still, the bat can't find it. But it can't stay still forever. One flap of the wing, and dinner is served. The lammergeier does a lot more than just feed on dead meat. It demolishes whole skeletons in search of its favorite meal: bone marrow. With a 3-meter wingspan, the lammergeier is one of the largest birds on the planet. But giant wings can't crack open bones. The solution? Take a heavy bone, find some sharp rocks, fly high, and let go. Timing is of the essence for any bird of prey. You pick your target, make your move, and bam, dinner is served. But no matter how fast they fly, it always seems as though there's something else out there that flies faster, reacts quicker, and is more lethal. So what's a frequent flyer to do? Develop a claw-proof defense. For Mexican free-tailed bats, that means safety in numbers. Emerge at dusk. First a few, then thousands, then millions. It may look like the set of a horror film, but the mouth of Bracken Cave in East Texas is the staging ground for the largest swarm of mammals on the planet. Here, Batman would be seriously outnumbered. From March to October, as many as 20 million bats roost, feed, and breed here. They may be only centimeters long, but with this many neighbors, real estate is at a premium. But these bats don't mind crowds. The more the bats hang together, the harder it is to pick out individual bats as prey. Their sheer numbers can be overwhelming, and their quick changes in direction can be confounding to potential predators. Now that's mob rule. The bats may have each other, but this weaver bird has a different kind of defense strategy to avoid predators. An excellent home security system. Of course, as with any good real estate, it's all about location. He's found an acacia tree with everything a potential mate could want. A water view, shade, and most importantly, viciously sharp thorns to keep most predators away. The custom-built home doesn't hurt either. Male weavers build intricate, tightly woven nests. If the female is happy with the general contractor's design, she moves in. Weavers depend upon their construction skills to keep their hatchlings safe. Usually, it works. But it doesn't stop the predators from trying. The noisy, boisterous colony is attracting some unwanted attention. This snake wants eggs for breakfast. As it carefully winds its way around the thorns towards a nest, a weaver sounds the burglar alarm. With a few deft moves, the weaver dumps his nemesis into the drink. Fending off this attacker won't be so easy. The gobbered goshawk can perch right on the nest. Actually breaking into it is a little harder. But all it takes is one little design flaw, and the hatchlings are toast. Even with all their precautions, for the weavers, this is still a pretty dangerous neighborhood. Especially if the cuckoos have moved in. These birds are experienced nest raiders, but they don't steal other birds' eggs for food. They replace them with their own. Once the cuckoo chick hatches, the devious baby makes sure it's the only bird in the nest, dumping out the eggs that belong there. And it happily takes food from its unwitting surrogate parent, even when it's 2 times mom's size. Sounds like a much better deal than perching on a clock. From song to dance to strength or even smell, mating in the air world is all about putting on a show. But to really succeed in spawning the next generation, these flying pop idol wannabes have to be resourceful too. This outdoor picnic has an avian invader, but this satin bowerbird isn't interested in snatching food. He's stealing straws for love. This Australian songbird lives to lure females to his bower, an avenue of sticks built with one purpose in mind: mating. But no self-respecting female is going to set foot in this bare-bones bachelor pad. He needs to redecorate. And he knows what the ladies like. Blue is their favorite color. This female is not particularly impressed. To win her heart, he'll have to up the ante. Now that's a big spender. Finally, the female allows herself to step inside his love nest. Male bowerbirds have an elaborate mating dance. But for this female, a ring seals the deal. At least until the next girl comes along. When it comes to love, most female birds seem to go for style over substance. In the bird world, flashy feathers or showmanship usually carry the day. A bird nerd rarely gets the girl. Just ask this avian Casanova, the mannequin. There are over 50 species of this showy little bird, and they all go full out to court the ladies. At breeding time, the brightly colored males stake out a staging area called a lek, the bird equivalent of a singles bar. A branch serves as the dance floor. The act isn't all snazzy steps. Sound is just as important. The buzzes, whirs, and snaps may catch a lady's eye. But the noise also warns other males. Back off, she's mine. And if all else fails, show some leg. The competition is so fierce that only alpha males will mate. Now that makes online dating look easy. Architecture, fashion, flirtation. All three seem to lure the females in. But the male Mediterranean fruit fly has a different strategy. Perfume. Eau de fruit fly is secreted from a rather unappealing place. But female flies think it's irresistible. As a potential mate flies by, the male uses his wings to waft the scent in her direction, just like an insect air freshener. Unfortunately, his smelly bottom attracts more than fruit flies. And he's too busy to notice. Predatory wasps love fruit fly fragrance and fruit fly flesh. That's a pretty high price to pay for a little love. When searching for a mate, most flyers don't have to broadcast from their bottom. They go with a more traditional tactic: song. Every rock star has their groupies. But when the male superb lyrebird takes the stage, he gives new definition to the term siren song. Like many birds, his voice is a prime way to woo the ladies. Those flashy 71-centimeter long tail feathers don't hurt either. But to lure the females in close enough to admire his pretty plumage, he has to sing his heart out. But this bird is more than just a snazzy solo. He's a whole glee club. He can imitate more than 20 different bird species in one song. The more complex, the better. Like the kookaburra. It's so convincing, it even fools the real thing. Though only outside the kookaburra's mating season. But this male doesn't just stop at bird calls. To really impress a potential mate, he breaks out the sampler. That was a camera shutter. And just to show off, he adds in the camera's motor drive. Now he's practically one of the paparazzi. The superb lyrebird can imitate nearly any sound he hears around him in the forest, though he rarely mimics man-made sounds in the wild. But when he gets his groove on, he can really let loose. A car alarm. And even a chainsaw felling trees. Maybe he should stick with something a little more romantic. Few birds can match the vocal skills of the lyrebird when looking for a mate, but other charms can be just as appealing to the opposite sex. This meadow, high in the Sierra Nevada mountains, is the stage for a sage grouse beauty pageant. But it's the males who have to perform. With those flashy tail feathers, solid breasts, and lively calls, they all look pretty good. But these judges aren't picking the next bird world idol. They're looking for something below the surface. A clean bill of health. While the males strut their stuff, the females eye the skin patches on their chests. So, what exactly are they looking for? Inflamed red skin is a sign of tuberculosis. Not so attractive. This is what they're looking for. The mustard-colored skin means this male is disease-free. First prize for the winner? He gets to mate with the judge. Victory is sweet. Whether incubating eggs, nursing young, or having to regurgitate your own dinner, parenting takes some serious dedication. But some flyers let others do the heavy lifting. Botflies lay eggs on other insects called vector hosts, which in turn carry the eggs to other locations. When the vector bites a bigger host, like a cow, the eggs sense the new host's body heat and burrow beneath its skin. The larvae stay under the skin for months, happily munching away. It's a nice, safe spot for the little parasite, but it's not so fun for the unwitting host. Especially when that worm takes up residence in an inconvenient location. National Geographic photographer Joel Sartori is the proud surrogate parent of a botfly larva. He's not quite sure when he became a father, but when you spend that much time with bugs,
That's one of the stinging ones.
something odd is bound to happen. He shot a lot of close-ups, but he never thought he'd be this close.
Man.
Es grande, Boro, Aquí está.
Sí, Boro.
Traditional treatments involve covering up the larva's breathing hole so its head emerges, then grabbing it and pulling it out. Parasitic larvae like the botfly can live in almost any part of the body, even the scalp. This woman, Vanessa, found out the hard way. She returned from a trip to Belize carrying a very unwanted souvenir.
Oh God, he saw it.
A bug in her head. First, she tries to smoke it out, to no avail. Next, a high-tech medical remedy. Tape over the larva's breathing hole. And the worm emerges.
It's kind of stuck.
Sort of. Yes, that was living in a woman's scalp. If they never encounter tape and a pair of tweezers, the botfly babies eventually come out on their own. If allowed to eat their fill, the larva will burrow out to pupate. But this is one baby that no one would want to keep.
Ow. Oh God, that hurts.
Even the botfly. When it comes to wild, weird, and wacky, the sky has no limits. To enter this world, there's just one requirement: get airborne. Whether they jump, leap, pounce, bound, dive, or glide, some of the world's weirdest creatures like to fly high. So look up, because the freaks of the sky are everywhere around, and they might be just overhead.